The first thing that comes to mind when you're creating a logo is that your logo has to be creative and beautiful. But if you don't follow certain rules or principles, what you're going to end up with is not going to be a logo. It might be a design, it might be a flyer, it might be vector art, but not logo. And that's not what you want. So there are more do's and don'ts of how to use a logo. I decided to pick a few that I see people misuse, and in this video I'm going to take you through do's and don'ts to creating a logo. The first thing you have to consider when you're creating a logo is that your logo must be rich in meaning. I borrowed this word from Gideon Thompson because I loved it. So your logo has to be rich in meaning that while you're going through the ideation of creating this logo, there has to be a meaning you're trying to convey with your logo, and while you're creating it, it has to be reflected. Not everything totally. People make this mistake of bringing all the elements they are trying to communicate and putting it in the logo. No. The meaning I'm talking about is essence. The essence you're trying to communicate. Are you communicating swiftness? Are you communicating speed? Are you communicating strength? What are you trying to communicate? What you're selling might be tailoring, but then you don't want to show this is what I do, tailoring, sewing with thread and everything on your logo. What you want to communicate is the value you're going to offer your client as a brand or a person. The next don't in a logo is don't accept a logo with drop shadow. I've seen lots of logos going out with drop shadow. A lot of times these logos are not going to work in application because while applying it on maybe print, it might not come out well in print. Maybe you want to flatten it to one color. So don't accept a logo with drop shadow. So another don't of creating a logo or a brand identity is don't use two icons. Two icons makes your brand story really complex. While you're creating your logo, you have to think of which icon will best fit your brand. You can't use A and play with the A as an icon, then you come and use B and play with B as an icon. It's a distorted message, and that's a lot of messages in one identity which you don't want to use. Because in aesthetics, it might be very beautiful. In aesthetics, it might be beautiful, but in application, it's a no-no. When you want to apply a logo, you either apply your typeface or you apply your icon. The next point you have to note when you're creating a logo is your typeface. As a client or as a designer, you have to be sure of the typeface you're using. Because a lot of times the typeface you're using is going to represent your logo where your icon is not being used. And it works. Really, you can bring HP and use it anytime. You can use Microsoft without the original logo, and it works. Lots of times typefaces are used as a logo, but then if you want to use an icon and a logo, it still works. So typeface carries a message. Sometimes people prefer to use bold typeface. Sometimes bold typeface shows strength, boldness, and a sense of authority, while lowercase typeface shows we are accessible, we are flexible, we are available. So you're supposed to put your typeface in consideration while creating your logo. So another point you have to note is don't follow trends while creating your logo. This point is very key because while you're creating your logo, if you follow trends, when the trend is out, your logo is out with the trend. And that's when you start having a conversation of, I want to rebrand, I want to create a new logo, the logo is not really communicating what we stand for. And now the designer, like as a client, you have to have these conversations with designers. What's the story behind it? Is it about trend? Is it about, so that you know, okay, this is what it is. It's not following trend, it's consistent with time. So your logo doesn't have to follow a certain trend that is up at the moment, because when the trend is down, your identity is down with the trend. So the last point I want to make is that you have to be consistent with the use of your logo. When your logo is created, there is a guide to how to use it and a guide to how not to use it. The best thing you can do for your personal brand or your brand is to follow the guide which was given to you by your designer or your brand person. Because if you don't follow the guide, over time you lose. So if you don't follow the guide, your identity becomes inconsistent. People are going to assume your brand is associated with inconsistency. So it's important that you follow the guide of how to use your logo. So guys, have a productive week of being awesome. Don't forget to like my video, subscribe to my channel, and expect more videos like this. Till I meet you next time next week. Peace and love.